Hey guys, slay your dragons, find your fairy tales. Tonight we are incredibly lucky enough to talk to the author of Muse, Melanie Snow. She is not only an author, she's an artist. She's not only an artist, she's an academic. She's not only an academic, she used to be a reporter just like me. And then in between all of that, she worked in public relations for law enforcement, and that set her up to help guide law enforcement at a national level on how to work with the media and deal with Amber Alerts and communicate effectively to save lives. So yeah, does that sound like a lot? It's a lot. It's amazing. Melanie Snow, I'm lucky enough to call a friend, and I want to tell a little story really quickly before we bring her on. In my book, in Hide With Me, I use an example of a bird. There was a hawk that I saw once in Quincy, Massachusetts on a cold winter day. There was a hawk circling and swooping down, and he kept trying to get a nest where there were little baby sparrows. And then all of a sudden, I saw all of the sparrows band together. And not only did they create a flock, they created a flock in the shape of a hawk. It was large up here, and it came down to a point, and it had a beak. And they swooped down and they chased that hawk away. Don't you dare attack what we care about the most. Don't you dare. And so I wrote a line that said, the flock can be the hawk to the hawk. Meaning that if you have the right people around you who believe with the same ferocity in the things that you do, there is no hawk. You will take that hawk down. The flock can be the hawk to the hawk. And when I first met Melanie, I immediately knew she had that kindred spirit, that energy, that when somebody says to you, no, you can't do it, you say, oh yeah, watch me. And the things that she has defeated, the dragons that she has slayed in the last year alone since I met her in person, she was one of those people where everybody that knew her and knew me kept saying, you have to meet, you have to meet. And it took years and years for us to meet in person. And then when I did, the things that happened in the next year that she had to confront make her be the very essence of what Find Your Fairy Tale is all about. So she's with us right now, and I know that she's going to join us live in a moment. Author, like I said, is just one of the feathers in her cap. She is a mother. She is an artist. Not only is she an artist, she's an artist that started like yesterday. She all of a sudden one day decided to pick up paint. And the paint started talking to her, and she started talking to the paint, and all of a sudden she had this amazing artwork that she's now selling on Etsy. And I am definitely a proud customer because I need to decorate my house with real art. So you'll have to check that out as well. So I need to scroll down and see. I'll bet you she's asking to join. I just have to find it. Yep, here we go. This is the magic finger. We go ET phone home, and now we are connected. Where is my friend? Where is my muse? Where is my Melanie? Here she is!
Hi,
Hey,
how are you? It's good to see you.
Oh, it has been a crazy time where we have not seen any of the people that we love the most enough, right?
I agree. And I guess I'm fortunate, though, that I'm still getting to see people this way and see friends online. And I think now is a time that I've never been more grateful for social media.
I know. People used to complain that it would take us away from the real things, and now it kind of is the real thing.
Yeah, it is. In fact, just with my job, at every meeting is Zoom. So I miss seeing people in person. I really, really do. I miss having those meetings that we used to complain about all day long. We have meetings, we have meetings. Now I'm sitting in the same chair in front of the same screen all day in my office. And I think, you know what? I miss being able to be in the same room with people and see their body language and have a conversation with them after the meeting, and just things like that. We've lost a little bit of that, and I'm hoping that we get it back soon.
I hope we do too. And in the downtime, though, we do discover new things. For our viewers tonight, the reason that I'm talking to you in particular, so the reason, should I put like parentheses S, the reasons I'm talking to you.
I come with a lot of
You have published a book.
ampersands.
You do. And beyond that, you suddenly discovered that you love to paint, and this was a new discovery, which I think is so important. And I want to dig into that, people who maybe have never explored an interest or a talent, it's never too late to say, hey, I'm interested in that. And on top of that, there's the 9 to 5 job. We all have to pay our bills. On top of that, there are careers that we've left that then circle back and start to feed the new chapters in our new careers. So there's so much that I want to dig in to talk to you about. But can we start with your book?
Yes.
Let's start with your book. Tell me, you were a journalist, and you are in many ways. It's like once a journalist, always a journalist, right? You're always asking the questions. You're always observing life. So you worked as a broadcast journalist for many years, and then where did you go from there?
Well, I did work as a TV news reporter. Worked in Terre Haute, Indiana. Worked in Louisville, and which is going through quite a lot right now. So my hat is off to my former reporter friends in Louisville right now, covering the riots in town. But I then came to Tampa Bay. I've been here for 12 years. I worked for Bay News 9, which is a local affiliate, and then left television. But yeah, just when you leave television, television never really leaves you. I
Yeah.
wanted to be a journalist, probably much like yourself, from the time I was a very young child. I was 4 or 5 and would sit in front of my family with a cardboard box and read the news. I would listen to Barbara Walters, and I would try to copy what she was saying, or Diane Sawyer, and I would try to hold myself like her on camera. And so I had these idols, and was always very observant. And my dad, from the time I was, I don't know, old enough to form words, said question everything. And when other kids were being given copies of, Goodnight Moon, he was giving me copies of Socrates and Plato and Nietzsche, and philosophy was very important to him. So that became very much a huge foundation of my life, and has carried forward. So my broadcast journalism career, I thought, would be the career for the rest of my life. I did not know that it would just be the first iteration of my career and my journey.
Isn't that interesting? Because not only is that something that you loved since you were a kid, but it's also one of those jobs that you have to fight very hard to get. There aren't that many physical job openings in that career. If you think about it, there are what, 3, 4 maybe networks in each state, in each city. And in those 4 networks, there are a couple reporter jobs that open up every couple of years. Maybe there's a main anchor gig that opens up sometimes when someone moves on or up or retires. And that then, it's hard to say, I think, something runs its course. But when you are as interested in life as everybody that I'm interviewing on this series is, the chapters just keep coming. So what made you leave?
Well, after my second son was born, I had reached a crossroads in my life, and the storyteller part of me, I knew, was going to continue in some capacity. I had always wanted to write a novel, and had been writing, fiction for basically my whole life, and had just not had the opportunity to get published. And so uh, I was very fortunate when I was at that crossroads that I got a call from the sheriff of the county that I live in. And we talked about a possible job opportunity for me. And it led to becoming a public information officer for a law enforcement agency, which, coming from television, wasn't a huge leap, because I'm
Yeah.
now working with the media, but just on the other side of the camera, sometimes on camera still, but on behalf of the law enforcement agency. And I thought, I'll do this job for a year or two, and then I'll go back into TV. But I fell in love with it. I was always a crime beat reporter at heart, and I think that there was just something amazing about working with deputies every day and seeing the work that they do, the good work they do in our communities. And I was mesmerized, and I thought, you know what, there's so many good stories here that as a journalist I never got to tell. And being a public information officer allowed me that platform to do that. Not to mention, I mean, every day was a bit of an adventure. I mean, I would learn more about these different cases that would come through and how they were handled. And so the writer part of me was like,
Yeah.
oh, this
Spinning,
is,
spinning, spinning.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's going to be a book that comes out of this, and at some point, and my novel, I was able to write my novel during my time working in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement as a public information officer for 6.5 years. And it was during that time that I was able to write my book that came out. I wrote it in 2016, and it came out at the beginning of
The beginning of. Oh, you froze. There you are. When did it come out? In the beginning of? You froze for a quick sec, Mel. When did it? I think you turned into a robot a little bit, but you're back now.
Poor Connection. Sorry.
Hey, you know what? This is what you know what? I feel like 2020 should just like the automatic hashtag underneath it is just called poor connection.
Yeah, or you're on mute.
Honestly, it's just it's exactly. Can we just delete? I mean, my gosh, it's stolen time in so many ways, but it's also it's gain time in what you learn to do, you know? So you're busy, you've got a day job. Tell me a little bit about your day job.
So 2 years ago, when I left law enforcement, I went to work in the world of academia. So I'm out of college, and I oversee the marketing and communications department, which is it's a dream job for me. I always wanted to work at a college or a university, so it's been a great first 2 years. It's definitely been interesting, especially with COVID, because my crisis
Crazy.
communications training got to, get get thrown in the mix. But while doing this new job, I've been working on my doctorate, so I start dissertation in a couple of months. So all these things that I had on my kind of my list of things I wanted to check off to do when I was in television, write a novel, get a novel published, get my doctorate, I've been able to do. And since I left television, so
Yeah.
and so yeah, so it's exciting. I work with some amazing people at the college. I have an amazing team at my staff. They're all very talented people. I'm around some highly intelligent people. So every day I'm thinking, okay, what does this person know, and how can I
Yeah.
learn from them? So that's been a wonderful experience too. I love being around people that are experts in their field. Again, going back to my journalism days, I get to kind of live vicariously
Yeah.
through the different people that I work with, and sort of learn
You
more
can
about
ask them
what
all
they're
of the
teaching.
who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and get all of their information, right? I
Yes.
mean, that's what
Well,
being a journalist is. It's getting to step into someone else's life.
yeah, and I miss that as a journalist, but I'm finding that I can still do that as a fiction writer, and definitely take it to the next level, so to speak.
Talk about taking it to the next level. The paintings behind you just decided to spill out of your creative brain a little bit, maybe timed with the pandemic, but with your own health crisis. For viewers who are with us right now, I said right at the top of this that Melanie was one of those people where everybody kept saying you have to meet, you have to meet, and then when I did, literally within the week, she said, "Yep, gonna be a little busy. Have to take on some cancer over here." And between battling cancer and fighting your way back, all of a sudden an entirely different art form was born, and you have some of it, behind you right now, and I'm absolutely in love with it. And I need to ask you right now, the pink and green palm tree one, like, is that one sold or can I still buy it?
No, that one's still available. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
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 one of those that
stri-
I covet. Like I covet art and I circle back to it because otherwise I would spend all my money on art and books and books and art by books and
Yeah,
friends and
me too.
everything. So I keep circling back to it and I'm like, do I really love it as much as no, I really do. And then I look at it again and I say, no, I really do. How in the world did you pick up paint at a time when maybe some people would have given up?
Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer October of last year, and it was, as anyone can imagine, earth-shattering. And the one thing that I always would cling to in any time of crisis in my life was my writing. And I found that it was difficult to write during after having all the surgeries that I had to have, and then chemo, and of course after chemo then there was radiation, and everything happened so fast, and I couldn't find my voice, my written voice, which was a struggle for me. And then in April, chemo was over, and I had a dream that I bought a bunch of art supplies. And the next day I got on Amazon and I bought a bunch of art supplies. I bought paintbrushes, and easel. I bought a bunch of canvases, some oil paints. I had been to some oil painting classes with my grandmother when I was a little girl in middle school, probably 5 or 6. Learned to paint a boat, maybe a couple trees, happy little trees.
But that
And
was all the painting that you've done, other
I,
than
yeah,
this dream that said you went out and bought some supplies.
yeah, I had not picked up a paintbrush for artistic purposes since I was 12. And there was something compelling me to do it. And because I wasn't writing and I wasn't able to get that same creative outlet that I was so accustomed to and had depended on my entire life, I sat on it, had all these supplies, like $250 worth of supplies. And, my kids are like walking past my office, like, what is wrong with you? Why do you have all this stuff? You do not even know how to draw a stick figure. And I felt like this was going to be something I needed to do. And lo and behold, after sitting on it, by mid-May, I had knocked out 2 paintings, and apparently abstract is my thing. I didn't know it was going to be. I didn't know what I was going to paint when I first put that brush to canvas. I didn't know what was going to come out. I didn't know if it was going to suck, if it was going to be good. I didn't really care, because I just wanted to feel that connection to art again. And it's brought me back to the written word as well, which is, it's amazing. But since the middle of May, and since kicking cancer's butt, I have somehow churned out 35 paintings and sold 6. So I don't really know, I don't really know how to explain it, other than I felt compelled. And
Muse, something was your muse. You are your own muse. It's interesting that's the title of your book too. We have the things that make us find our art. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's happiness, but it's those extremes, that make you find your coping mechanism. And yours has been to create, which is unbelievable that you've never even, studied art. And I think that a lot of people have seen modern art, like people will say, oh, it's so easy to create modern art. Can I just tell you, I was inspired by you. So I was like, all right, I've never done oil paintings. I've
thank
done
you.
acrylic. I'm like, I'm going to pick up oil painting. I have the whole set my mom got me for Christmas one year because I said I wanted to. And I tried. And do you know what my son said? He said, that is a picture of nothing. He's 4. And I was like, I saw beautiful dark banana leaves and light coming through. And he said, no, mommy, that is a picture of nothing. And I was like, you're not wrong, because I really was scared to sort of layer it on. Oils are tricky. They're really tricky because they don't dry. They never dry.
Well, that's
And
the other thing. Oils, the reason that I went with oil off the top was because that's the only thing I had ever played with, and it was when I was 12 years old. My
yeah,
grandmother was into oil paints, and she was also, she was very good. Like, she was very good with landscapes, and she was just this amazing artist. and something maybe I took for granted when I was a kid. And because I didn't like, I went to a couple classes with her and I didn't like it. I was like, this is, it was more time with her. I didn't really
Yeah.
enjoy having, going to this painting class with her. I wanted to be with her, but I didn't want to be there painting. I would rather have been doing something else. I mean, I was 12. It was, the 90s. There were other things I wanted to do. So, um, I think oil has taught me patience a little bit, because I am not a patient person. I
Neither
see
am I.
something that I want and I go after it, and I don't believe in sitting around waiting on things to come to me. I've never approached life that way. My grandfather used to call me bootstraps, because I've always been able to kind of pick myself up by the bootstraps and just do what I want to do. And oil, I'll be honest with you, it pissed me off. It made me so angry that it took so long to dry. It was like
Do you
2 weeks
remember my
and it was
text
still
messages to you? I
wet.
was like, what happened? How did my picture of banana leaves just turn into a big green canvas?
Yeah.
And it's because I
Yes.
kept painting on top, on top, on top, on top, thinking that I could layer it up and it would become a beautiful picture, but all I did was muddle the picture instead. And if that's not a metaphor for life, I don't know what is, because you have to be patient when the layers are forming, you know? And you talk about finding your fairy tale and finding your happily ever after and slaying those dragons and all of those things that are so important. But if you're impatient and you don't wait for a layer to set, talk about a big muddled mess.
Yeah, I got a couple of those around me too. But I've started working with acrylic as well now, and like I'm venturing out. Michael's, they know me by name now when I walk in there, because I'm going so much. But I'm doing mixed media work as well, so I find that I'm mixing oil with acrylic, and I'm getting a little creative. And at some point, I'd like to take an actual class on this, if there's ever classes available in person again,
I know,
uh,
right?
because I've
It's all
never.
it's a virtual world right now.
It's
If you
yeah, and
were
I watched some YouTube videos, but beyond that, I haven't really done any. I need some training, because otherwise, I'm going to keep just producing all this, and I think I can do better. So I want to learn more.
Well, I think your stuff looks great, and I think there's a happy medium between being trained and creating art from the heart, you know, and not being constrained, you know. So I think it's great. In many ways, it's how I started writing, and probably how you started writing as a little kid. You know, no one taught you structure. No one taught you all of the rules. You said, I have a story. I have a character. I'm going to put it down on paper because they're alive in my head, and you did it, and it was magical, wasn't it?
Yeah, it kind of feels magical. I mean, I now, when I paint, it's very similar to when I'm in the zone when I'm writing. You know how you get into that
Mm-hmm.
moment where I start typing so fast, it's like machine gun fire. I can't stop typing. My mind is thinking faster than my hands can keep up with putting words to paper. And that's always been how my writing process is. There's never been any formal training with that really either. I write what's coming out and what I'm feeling at the time. And the painting I'm finding is very similar in that regard. I don't go into the evening saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to do a painting tonight and it's going to be, blue and gold, or, I just come in here and I put on some music. It's generally very loud music. And I just grab whatever colors feel right and start tossing them out there. And I think the same thing is true with words. I mean, Muse, I mean, it took me 3 months to write it, but I had been accumulating that book for years prior to
Mm-hmm.
finally putting it together. I mean, I had pieces of it, and I would just take these little vignettes that I had been creating, and I finally sat down one day and had all this stuff and was like, holy crap, I've got a book. And I don't usually write
You
romance.
do.
I write,
You're like,
I
oh, look,
write,
little pieces. And then all of a sudden that
yes.
happens. And isn't that amazing?
It
And,
was
or look
not what
behind
I
you.
expected. It was a love
Look behind
story as
you.
well.
That happens. Look next to you.
Yeah.
That happens. I mean, that's what art is when your brain is so full that it just, and your heart is so full, it needs to explode somewhere. Were you this creative as a kid?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was always a writer. I was, writing poetry and short stories when I was 4. My younger son, I have 2 boys, and my younger son Grayson is 9, and he's writing stories too. I'm finding them in his room, and it
Are you
kind of
so excited?
makes my heart leap a little bit. Yeah, because I know that feeling of, even being in high school, and if any of my high school teachers for any reason are watching this, no disrespect, I totally was paying attention, but I spent a lot of time writing stories when I was supposed to be paying attention in class. Like I did the,
Me
textbook
too.
up, and I was writing, I was writing stories. And the same thing in middle school, same thing in elementary school. And that never changed. Even during live shots, when I was working in Louisville, I worked the morning show, and you work a morning shift, so you wake up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there
You're
would be
kind of
these.
inherently in a creative space because the world is a little fuzzy at that hour.
Yeah, there was nothing
Hmm.
else going on except for what I was there to cover, and then there would be these gaps of time in between my live shots, and I would write. And bless the photographers that I worked with, because every day I'm like, oh, you've got to hear this new thing I wrote, and I would subject them to, reading passages of whatever I was writing at the time. And I would write mostly crime stories. I really love, good crime driven novels with suspense that are thrillers. And I was able with Muse to incorporate some of that, but it had its, I mean, it even says on the cover it's a love story, right? So it was
Right.
published by the Wild Rose Press. That's my publisher. And I'm to this day so grateful that they took a chance with me and put my work out there. I just never would in a million years, with the type of stuff that I usually would write, would have expected a love story to be the first thing to get picked up. So that was a bit of a surprise. But, you know, I'm writing another
Sometimes we're
one,
not
and
as
then
rough and tumble and tough as we think we are, I
sometimes
suppose.
we're not. Sometimes
We're
we're a little
all,
bit
maybe every
romantic.
artist is a little bit of a hopeless romantic at heart, probably.
I'd like to think so. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with being a little rough and tumble and a bit hopelessly romantic at the same time. I think you need a balance of both in life. And I mean, coming out of the whole, cancer nightmare, and I'm so grateful to so many people. There's no end to the list there as far as how much support I was able to get. But I will say the one thing that it taught me was you can't control everything, right? And I'm a type A. I've
Mm-mm.
always, taken the bull by the horns with everything I've done in my life. But this time I didn't get a say so in what was happening to me. I had to do what other people were telling me to do, and that was to get better. And I still worked, and I still, I would do chemo on Thursday, and I'd be back to work on Monday, and I still did all the things. But I had to stop and figure out a way to find a place of peace in the middle of all of it. And somehow that place of peace came with oil paint and brushes, and it's coming back to my work as a writer. So I'm looking forward to what's coming next, and the next novel that I'm working on right now. I'm really excited about. And I'm from East Tennessee. I'm very much a proud Appalachian girl. So a lot of the book that I'm working on now takes place near where I'm from. So I'm going to be pulling a lot from my roots there, and my accent's even trying to come out as I'm talking about it, because that always happens
Can
without
I
fail.
ask you? Okay, so I grew up in New England and we always said Appalachia.
No,
And
that's
then
wrong.
now, like, of course it was wrong. We had no idea, but now it's like widely known that we're wrong. How were we wrong for so many years? And now, where did the correction come from? Because now I feel like everybody knows. By the way, can we just pause and read one of our viewers' comments? She's wonderful and inspiring, badass with a big heart. I mean, This is somebody who's never met
Thank
you.
you.
And that is the most accurate assessment that I could say, because like I was
Thank you very
trying to
much.
say who I was interviewing tonight, and all I kept wanting to type was badass, badass, badass. But then I kept getting like the word warm kept getting in the way. So big heart, that's where that is. I'm like, how is a badass warm? Like warm and fuzzy. But you are a warm and fuzzy, big hearted badass. That's a pretty awesome thing to be.
Thank you. I
I think
appreciate
maybe
it,
it
and thank
comes
you for
from
the comments.
Appalachia. Appalachia. Appalachia.
Appalachia.
Tell me a little bit about growing up. That in essentially, you know, a part of the world that let you stay a kid for a little bit longer.
Well, I will say off the top, I took it for granted. As soon as I was old enough, I got out and like moved to Chicago and it was like, I'm leaving this one horse town. I'm going to the big city. But now and for many years prior to now, I look back and I think I had it made. I mean, I grew up near the Smoky Mountains. Like the Smoky Mountains were my backyard. I could go play in a creek as a kid, and my brother and I did. We played in the creek, we call it that.
The
We
crick.
played in the creek, and we would hang out in the mountains. We'd build forts, and Cades Cove was just a tourist place, but we knew the side roads where you could go and find cool places to swim and to hang out and take days off of school in high school that were not days you were supposed to take off. I'm not going to use the word ditching, but I mean, sometimes you want to find a day and go lay by the creek in the mountains and work on writing a story and that's I loved growing up there. And my dad was a musician and played guitar and was a writer as well. So I owe some of my writing DNA to him for sure. And he would write his own songs and would always talk to me about, growing up in Tennessee. And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting out of here. And now when I go home, I mean, it just hits me how much I miss it and how much I loved it there and how much I miss this. Like I can smell Appalachia right now. I can smell the mountains and the trees changing and I'm not even there. Like
Mhm.
that's how personal it is to me. It is such a beautiful place.
When you grow up in a place where the seasons change hard, you know, like the Florida has invisible changing of the seasons where I lose track of time, but it's ingrained in your blood, isn't it? Like you feel fall and you smell fall, and you, if that's just where you grew up, like you get that sense of newness and that crispness. And I'm like, something's still 86 degrees and it's still completely humid, but something is happening somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing how the changing of the seasons becomes a part of your body almost.
And I miss it. And Florida, I've lived here in Florida for 12 years and trust me, sunsets on the beach are pretty fabulous and I love the water and but I mean you can take the girl out of Appalachia, but you can't take the Smoky Mountains out of the girl. And I miss it, and I definitely miss the seasons changing, and I miss knowing that it's happening right now, and I'm not
Yeah.
there. I feel like I'm like missing something. So I'll definitely be going home in a few weeks just so I can catch some of the colors when the trees start to really change. And if
I
some of my
think that
Tennessee friends are watching, you send me pictures because I want to see them.
so you can just breathe in the pictures. There
Just so
you
I can
go.
like look at the pictures. One of the best gifts I received from my friend Xana while I was recovering after my double mastectomy surgery in November of last year, she sent me some fall leaves in a frame, and I just thought that was the great. It's the greatest gift because she just knew that for some reason that's what I would need to see, and it
Mhm.
was, and it is. I keep it up. I look at those leaves all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
The changing of the seasons, and then, you know, just the sort of sense of renewal is the most perfect thing to give you in that moment. You grew up feisty, my friend. You did. You did. You know,
yeah,
you
a
were
little
working
bit.
at the age of what, like 7, maybe 11. How old were you when you got your first job?
Well, my parents were a little bit wayward. We kind of lived in cars and sometimes in mobile homes and sometimes in homeless shelters and sometimes in different places. So I had kind of a wild childhood up until a point, and then I moved in with my grandparents when I was 9 or 10, and they owned one of the original A&W restaurants in the country, in Lenoir City, Tennessee. And the A&W, my grandfather changed the name to T's Drive-In because his name was James Thomas T.
Yeah.
And when I moved in with him, one of the first things he said to me, he said, "Now, Pud, I'm going to have you come into work." And I said, "What?" I was like 9. Like, what do you mean? Like thinking chores, right? No, no. I was waiting tables and bussing tables and helping with the Sunday church crowd after, they would leave me like 10 cents, 25 cents. And I was that cute little kid that would get a quarter. But I saved all that money. And I just remember thinking, I may have been 10 or 11 years old, but I had been saving money that I was earning. But no, I've never known what it's like not to work. And I think that has played a big role in, well, in who I am. I mean, I I don't know how not to work. And even when I have a full-time job, I take on extra jobs because I like to feel like I'm doing something more than even what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
I even, working as the associate dean at the college that I work for, I got a call at the beginning of the year to kind of go back to my law enforcement roots a little bit to help out with Amber Alert, which was a huge deal for me when I worked in law enforcement. Being a part of the missing abducted child team um, it was such a big part of my job, and it meant so much to me. And getting information out to the public and making sure the media had the right messaging and the right narrative was out there to find missing children. And I got a call, hey, we're going to be redoing some of the Amber Alert books that are out there, the handbook essentially for public information officers. And would you like to help rewrite it? And I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, yes. I'm going through chemo. This is right before COVID, but
Right.
why not?
Okay, so yeah, cancer needs to be defeated. Also, full-time job at a college. Also, global pandemic starting. But yeah, sure. Let me take this on. Oh yeah, and I started painting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Where does
yeah.
that come from? Where does that spirit of needing to experience life and all of your interests to the fullest all the time? Because people will say you can't be all things at once, but you dabble in all things at once, and maybe you can't be, the ultimate top of your career in every single moment at the same time. But what is it about kind of keeping your feet in a lot of different places, keeping your hands in a lot of different things that keeps your soul alive?
I think that's the very nature of what keeps my soul alive. I don't. I, there's 24 hours in a day, right? And I like to look at how many of those hours do I want to spend doing something meaningful. And some days I want to lay by the pool and drink a beer and not do anything at all. I don't
Yes.
get very many of those days, but I try to take that hour when I can. But I'm a firm believer in taking every advantage of every opportunity that falls into your lap or that you work for. And I just, the Amber Alert thing, I mean, I really believe, again, that was kind of a calling, because law enforcement, even though I no longer work in law enforcement, that was something within law enforcement that meant something to me on a very large scale. And I was so excited to be brought back into the fold for that reason, and knowing that there's maybe potential for more work moving forward with Amber
Mm-hmm.
Alert. So I just don't like to say no to things that I know could have value. And I want to leave this earth someday knowing that I made a mark, even if it was really bad abstract art. or
It,
questionable abstract art. I don't know. I
do
want to.
not call your art bad. I like it because then if you call your art bad, the fact that I like it, you're calling my taste bad, and I don't find you to be a particularly insulting friend. So there you go.
Oh,
Although,
I
you know,
love you.
you don't hesitate. You don't hesitate to say how you feel. Let's go
No.
back to the AW roller skate days. You neglected a couple key facts. First of all, when you said you
Lordy.
waited tables starting age 9, like you had to learn to roller skate because it wasn't just tables. Like you were going out to the cars, you know, to drop off the food on roller skates.
Yeah, my grandfather decided for a while he wanted to try the roller skating thing. This did not last long, mostly because of me. I am not the most graceful person in the world, first of all, but I also have a bit of a smart mouth. As my grandmother used to say, my smart mouth was going to get me in trouble someday, and it probably has on more than one occasion, and will continue to do so. But I'm a big fan of good trouble.
And
So
good trouble is
good
telling
trouble.
people how you feel. So,
Yes.
you know, there was a repeat customer, right, who would come in and he got your attention. Why?
Oh yeah. So this was when I was probably 13, 14, and during
So
the
dangerous. Uh-huh.
yeah, attempted roller skating period. And there was this guy that would come to the restaurant, pull up on the curb, the outside machines, you push the button and orders, the classic A&W restaurant, and had a giant rebel flag on his truck, and he would come in every day with the rebel flag flying. And he wasn't the nicest guy. He would make inappropriate comments, and I was a girl, so I knew what those comments meant. And finally, one day he came in, and I had just had it with him. And in my very best Scarlett O'Hara impression, um, after providing him with his meal on the window, she put the little tray on the window. I said, "Oh dear, the South is going to rise again. I had no idea. I better go downstairs and prepare myself." And said a few other things, and skated my butt back into the restaurant, where my grandfather proceeded to lay into me a little bit for being rude to a customer. But I didn't think he was a very nice guy, and I kind of thought he had it coming. So I don't regret it.
Well, my dear, I think that set the stage for who you are.
I don't like people that are rude, and he was a rude person. And I tried to be a lady. My grandmother always said, "Always be a lady." And I at one point I remember saying to her, "Okay, well, what does that mean exactly? At what point am I no longer a lady? Is it when I decide to tell off the guy in the parking lot that he is a misogynist or a racist? Or, is it when I speak out of turn, when I'm going to church on Sunday and I ask a question when I shouldn't have? Or at what point do I lose my ladylike behavior?" So my opinion on that now, as an older woman who is 42 years old, I would like to say that, you know what, you can be a lady and still get into good trouble, and stand up for what you believe in. So I'm all about doing that, and I continue to do that, and will continue to do that, and will continue to do that in front of my boys, because I want them to see what being a strong woman is all about. That's why I would bring them to CrossFit with me. I want them to see their mother lift 200 pounds or whatever. They need to see that women can be strong and slay their dragons, and at the same time still be true to themselves. And that's one thing that I've always tried to be. I mean, what you see is what you get here, y'all. Like, this is me. So
I like what I see, and I think that is why people are drawn to conversations about getting what you want out of life from people who tell it like it is, because it's not easy. It's not easy to transition from career to career. It's not easy to fight breast cancer. It's not easy to go lift 200 pounds at CrossFit. And it's certainly not easy to grow up. You know, you said you wanted to get out. You were in Appalachia and you wanted to go to Chicago. You wanted to go to the big city. And you made those things happen. So for somebody who's listening right now who thinks, wow, you've done a lot and you've managed to tackle a lot, what is your secret? Do you have a way to finish the sentence to find your fairy tale? What?
When you decide you want to do something, look at the ways to achieve it and make it happen. I mean, I just finding my fairy tale has been it's been pretty simple, really. I made up my mind I wanted to do something and I just did it. And if there were bumps or hurdles along the way to get there, I just dove through them because you have to. Same thing with breast cancer, you know? I mean, here's breast cancer. What are you going to do? Got to fight it in order to get to the other side. So I look at life that way. If I wanted to get to uh, the next job or the next career, then I would begin to start to pave that way in order to make that happen and take those steps. And sometimes I've been very lucky to have things fall into my lap, so to speak, or to be given to me, but they were as a result of the other things that I had done leading up to that. So I would also say, work for something, achieve the goal that you want to achieve, and know that that's just the beginning, because what you're doing is you're establishing a platform for what could be so many other fairy tales, so many other different things that could happen in your life. And I mean, I never thought that I would become a reporter and then become a public information officer and then become a, a dean at a college. Like, these were not things that I thought would happen in that order. I thought I'd be a news reporter and that would pretty much be my career. And then maybe I'd write a book when I was old and gray, and that would be it. But, other plans apparently in the universe were out there for me. And with each thing that I've done, I have found great purpose and great joy, and I've always felt like I was exactly where I needed to be when I needed to be there. And I feel that more than ever now, working at a college and working with students and being on a college campus. And it's such an invigorating feeling, and working toward my doctorate and all these things that I wanted to do. And I use that chemo chair, by the way, to write papers. So if any of my professors are watching, my papers weren't late because I was still working on them in the chemo chair. That's a lot of time to sit and knock out papers. So I would
That's
just
hours of your day.
hours and
My
hours.
goodness.
But yeah, so just, when you decide you want to do something, just do it. I mean, just go after it, figure out a way to get there, make a plan. And if you don't know how to make the plan to get to where you want to go, find someone else who has, and then go talk to that person. Reach out to that person. Hell, reach out to me. Maybe maybe I can give you some advice. I don't know. Reach out to Servani. Like, I'm a firm believer
Completely.
in
That's what this is all about. I am so
finding
happy you
someone to
just said
help
that,
guide you.
because yeah, we're not, this isn't something just to watch. This isn't something just to listen to. This is something to participate in and talk to us, ask your questions, make new friends. And that's why I started it where I did, which was with the story that inspired that quote in my book, which was, the flock can be the hawk to the hawk. You have to find your flock. You have to find the people that are going to gather around you. And when that evil hawk comes, they're going to form the shape of a bird and they're going to stab it down and they're going to have your back and they're going to help you achieve those dreams. So, and that can even be your thought process. It doesn't necessarily have to be people. You have to say, okay, all these cluttered thoughts in my head, that's my flock. And then there's this negative idea, that's my dragon. And I'm going to slay it. I'm going to just take it and I'm going to focus and I'm going to figure out how to get rid of it. But I think that takes a sort of fury, for lack of a better word. And I think that it is fair to have anger. There must have been such a huge part of you that said, I am young. I do not deserve to be facing breast cancer. I'm angry. But then what do you do with that anger? Anger can destroy you because it can be like, this isn't fair. And you go that way. Or you say, you have become my weapon. You've become my strength.
That's exactly what I did. I when I got the news, and it was October 7th of last year, so we're approaching the 1 year anniversary date, and with that comes a little bit of anxiety and holy
For
crap,
sure.
it's been a year. And definitely one of the most challenging years of my life. I had no pre-existing conditions. I've always been healthy. I was a CrossFitter. I was in the best shape of my life. I ate healthy for the most part. Like, and then one day a lump. And I remember when I was sitting in the doctor's office and I had already been told over the phone that they thought that it was cancer, but this was when I finally heard it from the surgeon that yes, you have invasive ductal carcinoma. You're stage 2. Take them both. Just take them. I didn't even think twice about it. And, you know, obviously you can, reconstruction is a thing and got that done and that's all great. But I didn't think twice about what I said because from the moment that I got that news, that horrific news, I knew I had to take control of the situation. And I wasn't going to just sit back and let it take control of me because it very easily could have. It's very
Yeah.
easy to find yourself being sucked into the darkness when you find out that the clock is ticking on your life and you have kids to raise and you I mean I hadn't even turned 42 yet. I still had 3 days. Like I was 41 and I was thinking about my birthday and thinking about this. I had just come back from a really great work conference and I wasn't thinking that suddenly my entire world was going to be potentially shattered in a second. But from the time they told me, I looked at it like someone slaying a dragon. Like, okay, you know what? What would Daenerys do in Game of Thrones? Like,
Mother of dragons. You have
what would the
to.
mother of dragons do? Well, she'd get one of those dragons and she'd hop on board and blast out whatever was in her way. And so that's exactly what I did. And if that meant using chemotherapy or radiation or surgery or whatever I had to do, I would suck it up and I would do what needed to be done because I have 2 kids that need their mom. And breast cancer happens to 1 in 8 women. We're approaching Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I can't urge women enough to check yourself, and please, by all
Mm-hmm.
means, take a moment and do that because had I not, I may not have found it. And so, and I may not be here right now having this conversation with you. So, I'll, I do believe things happen for a reason. And as a former cancer patient or an ongoing, I guess, cancer patient, a survivor, people, I guess, would say, why would you want that to happen to you? Like, why would that be something that you would want to happen? Well, I didn't want it to happen, but it did happen. So now I have to take what occurred and turn it into something. And right now it's a bunch of art and soon it'll be a book. And, it won't be a book about breast cancer, but it definitely will have components in that novel of feelings that I experienced. And that's what's going to be in the next novel is one of the main characters is going to have gone through similar trauma in her life. And, in addition to breast cancer, I mean, the universe tried to throw a bunch of crap at me at once. I mean, I won't lie. Like my father died the day before my double mastectomy. Um, I there are no words, and I lost my grandfather in January, and my 2 maternal aunts in December. So like all of this happened at once.
Things suddenly happen. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times that has happened, in life and in the life of my friends where it's like you almost feel like you're being tested, how much can you handle? And I remember something that, you know, my best friend from when I was 8 years old, my first childhood friend told me once where I was like, why am I being punished? And she said, you're not being punished, you're being prepared. And I never looked at it that way. I always thought that I was somehow suffering because of something that I had done wrong. And she said, maybe reframe it up that you're being made stronger for what comes next. And I think that that is the way to do it. But, to kind of wrap things up here, it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of strength to approach life the way that you do. So not everybody is that strong. Not everybody feels that brave. What what is some advice that you have to find that smoldering core within you? I mean, you said it's for you it sounds like, I have kids. I've got to rally. I've got to be here. So is it maybe just finding the people or the thing that matters the most to you on this planet and just being there for that?
It definitely plays a huge role in it. My boys are my world, and I didn't even think twice. I'm And I mean, I'll be honest with you, even if I didn't have kids, I still would have probably approached it the same way just
Yeah.
because, I'm not done yet. I've got things to do. I've got a life to live. I've places I want to visit, things I want to say. And I do believe, though, when you're confronted with something that you feel like you maybe can't handle, or it's going to be too much, that's when you need to be reaching out for those people that can help you. And I was so fortunate. I mean, it, to have people that have been through breast cancer
Mm-hmm.
and reach back out to me and help guide me. And now I'm doing that for other women, and the cycle continues, right? So you give back what you get, and I was lucky to have that. So yeah, but when you have to fight, you're fighting for someone, but you're also fighting for yourself. I mean, I'm fighting to stay here for my kids, but I have to fight for me. And right now, at the end of the day, like I look at my life and I think, okay, I could be my own worst enemy here, or I can be my biggest advocate. And the saying, it's how you respond to things, that's the biggest mind over matter kind of situation, right? It's how you respond to what's happening to you. And that was the only thing I had a choice in, was how I was going to respond to it. So I would say to anyone who's going through something traumatic, be it breast cancer, a death in their family, um, something personal that's just deeply hurtful, you just have to remember you have control over how you respond to it. And if that means screaming and crying and drinking bad beer in your closet, wearing some old pair of high heels that don't fit you quite so well anymore because your feet swelled up because of your second kid, this did not happen to me. Maybe it did. I'm just saying, you do what you got to do. I took the expanders, like after a double mastectomy, they put these plastic expanders in your chest to like hold the space until they can put breast implants in, right? I took
Yeah.
those suckers to a shooting range a few weeks ago and I blew them up with a Glock.
Yes.
And I got video of
Yes.
it, and I'm going to be posting that in the next couple of weeks for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I did it not because I like to shoot guns, but because I wanted to take my power back a little bit,
Right.
because breast cancer tried to take my power from me. I'm not going to let that happen. And so it felt pretty good. And my plastic
You
surgeon
blew
was
it
a
to
little
smithereens. I
concerned.
love it.
My plastic surgeon said, "I'm sorry, you want to keep them? Why?" And I'm like, "Don't ask. Just, dude, put them in a container and leave them by the bed. When I wake up, I'm going to take them home with me." And so
Sure enough, they were there,
they're
and now
there,
they're
and
gone.
now they're
And
gone.
now they're gone.
Now they're in pieces. Great.
And you are whole, and you are an inspiration, and everything that you've said tonight is going to stay with me for so, so long. I appreciate you taking an hour out of your busy life to talk to me, to talk to us. And I know you meant what you said. I meant what you said, what you said about reach out. And if there's somebody out there who's going through something similar, I know you want to hear from them.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm easy to find on social media. Just look for me, and I will be glad to offer anything, advice, a hand to hold, someone to drink a bad beer with, so virtually or otherwise,
Me, that's
um,
me.
or a
I
good
love bad
beer.
beer. And nobody dare go on her Etsy site and try to buy the amazing pink and green palm tree
It's
explosion,
not on
because
there yet.
that is, thank goodness, because
I'm
that one's
saving it
mine.
for you.
That plus the original Writer's Coven. Like, I knew there was always going to be a pair. And then you knew when I started circling around, and I was like, so is that pink and green? Is that, what are those leaves? It's hard to tell sometimes on social media, but that one's talking to me. So it's going to be a part of my life. And I'm so glad that you're a part of my life too. Thank you
Oh,
so
and
much for talking to me tonight.
thank you. It's good to see you, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Good night, Melanie. Good night,
Good night.
everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget,
Bye.
slay those dragons, find your fairy tale. There's no
Right.
other option. Good night.